And we are live. Danhausen, welcome to the Wrasslerap Arena. We appreciate you tapping in. Now, I don't know what we call you. Do we call you Danhausen? Do we call you the performer known as Danhausen? Are you Danhausen? Like, you're fascinating on so many levels. I'm just going to come out and say that I might fanboy a little bit about this just because I love the performance art and the aspect of what you do. So first thing I want to say is thank you for tapping into the Wrasslerap Arena with me and Mighty Vin.
Oh yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. As far as the name goes, it's my real last name. So you can call me Donovan Danhausen, which I think people forget was my name. It's hard to find, but it's still people forget that, like, I don't know, less than 3 years ago I was still going by that name.
Well, it's funny.
But yeah, no, it's just my last name. So we can go by Danhausen, we can go by Donovan, we can.
You know what? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to switch it up a little bit. Sometimes we'll call you Donovan. Sometimes
call you Donnie.
We'll call you Donnie. Whatever you want to do. We'll figure it out. However the mood strikes us.
It'll be totally fine.
Cool.
We'll call you. We'll just make up name. We'll call you Coked Up Werewolf if we want. But
right, so whatever you need.
Yeah, first and foremost, it really speaks to how like charismatic and unique the character is. That, when we first were talking by email, you were like, hey, do you want me in character? Do you want me not in character? And to me and Emilio, we were just kind of like, well, we don't want, even though you're very accommodating, like, we don't want you to put the makeup on and like do the whole bit. Like, we don't make you work when you're doing an interview. But at the same time, it's like, when we were looking through everyone else's interviews with Danhausen, it's like, 9 out of 10 of them must be like, oh yeah, definitely. Why would we not want the character?
Most of the time it is they want character stuff,
and it's like it's funny that the character is taken off sort of on a life of its own with these very well developed sort of tropes and memes at this point. Because, and you've been hinting at this a little bit, people who are on your Patreon, you've been showing it a little on Instagram and Twitter. The early versions of the Danhausen character were radically different, almost like definitely too scary for the audience that he's got now.
Yes. So that's where the very nice, very evil comes from. Because that was just very evil. And that was a test period of like introducing what I actually enjoy, which is horror. And all of that like theatrical stuff, and it caught on slightly. Like you could see it start to kind of click with some people, but again, it's a joke, but it's not that it was too evil. So not everybody is going to get into it, but if you add the other part of my character, which is the very nice part, then it's like the perfect blend of doing the horror comedy character where people really went, oh, okay, I can watch this, I can digest this. But like scenes from Hellraiser and introducing them into like my character and twisting them to be with Danhausen is a little too jarring for some people. And then just being able to do whatever I feel like doing and adding the comedy part to it and the sarcasm and the skits, that makes it more accessible to kids, adults, everybody in the audience.
Absolutely, because I think I could speak for Emilio, we talk all the time about how, here on the East Coast, whenever we would go to an indie show for the past like 20 years now, there's always like sort of the token horror gimmick. And even though that's kind of evolved a little bit over time, even if that's something that you want to do and you feel like this is the best pure horror gimmick I can come up with, you got to still be looking around going like, I got to mix this up somehow.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly actually what it was, yes, I can be the best horror character that there is, but again, only the people or the fans who like horror are going to really like the character. So wrestling's already very niche, and then you also isolate the fans by making it a horror-based character, and then it just kind of lowers and lowers your audience because it's already hard to get wrestling fans to watch wrestling. I mean, that's not true, not to get wrestling fans to watch wrestling, but to get other people to watch wrestling, which has been my goal.
Right, which is, I think that's the thing, and I think you're executing that goal like really flawlessly, because what you're doing is you're mixing that sports entertainment aspect that is associated with,
Yeah.
televised professional wrestling on an independent surface, right? Because you really don't see
Yeah.
independent wrestlers really doing full-fledged gimmicks and staying within that like kayfabe realm from start to finish of the show. And you're not seeing that. And one of the things that I like that you did was you figured out, okay, I'm a talented wrestler. I can get booked just based on my merit. Cool. But now, what's going to get me bigger paydays? What's going to get me more notoriety? And what's going to get me a larger fan base to move up and up in my career? And that's when it really started to click with me. I remember watching something, because at first I didn't get it. I'll openly admit that I
Oh,
didn't
yeah, absolutely.
I didn't get it. I was like, okay, this is cool. But then once I seen you do the like Tequila was playing, dun, 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 and you were doing this dance in the ring, and everybody was just so fixated on that. I was like, this kid's got something, man.
Well, because it's one of those things where, like the first time you did that, did you have this idea that like this could go either way, where it's like people are going to either love this,
Or
because
hate
that's
it.
the kind of thing where it's like you see this guy in paint and he's doing the tequila dance and kicking someone in the face, and it's like either this is the stupidest thing in the world, or the entire crowd is going to go nuts for it.
Well, it's both at the same time. It is absolutely the stupidest thing in the world, but the crowd loves it. The kids in the audience love it because it's something they can kind of like participate in. And same thing with the audience, like the adults, they can participate in that. So it's fun for them. And even in character, I'm dancing. I look like I'm having fun, but there are parts of it where I'm just like, oh, I'm dancing. I'm Danhausen. I don't want to be dancing right now, but this entrances the audience. And it's like a hypnotic spell. Like if in character, if I'm doing it, it's essentially hypnotizing the audience to follow me and do all the motions with me and then sing the song because I'm making them. So it still in my head fits that narrative of like my character trying to get everybody to love him. Like it's working. Um, but yeah, no, I did not envision doing that more than once. So I wrestled PB Smooth at a bar show with no ring, and he is, I think, 6'8". I think he says he's 7 feet tall. I think he's 6'8". It's the hot secret. But I was like, he's like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I mean, I don't have the ring to use. I don't have anything to where I can like jump off of something at you necessarily, or like use ropes to get momentum to realistically like take you down or anything. I was like, beat me up the whole match. That's fine. Throw me up on the bar at one point and I'll counter something and then I'll make them play that song and I'll do the dance from Tequila and you'll be very confused, And we went through that whole thing and then that caught on and I was like, oh, okay. Like it was just one of those things. It was like an add-on show. I had one. It was for Unsanctioned Pro, who I normally work for, but it was just they're like, hey, we're doing this like one-off bar show. Do you want to do it? I was like, sure. Like, why not? Which actually like falls under this. I always took this advice and I tell it to new people too. Is I met Sami Zayn once at an Evolve show. He did like just an appearance, a one-off, one weekend in New York, and I did the seminar and everything for Evolve, and he was there, and I was probably annoying, but I was like, hey, do you have any advice for a new wrestler? Because at this point I didn't have a character or anything. And he's like, do every single show you possibly can. He's like, do the weird shows, do the one-offs, do shows. He's like, you're gonna learn from all of them. He's like, do the great shows. He's like, those shows are just as important as like the shows with 500 people or 1,000 people. And it always stuck with me. And that's just one of those shows where I was like, well, this is new, but maybe I'll learn something from it because I've never wrestled not in a ring. But yeah, so that was actually one of the instances where like I took that and I just ran with it and let it snowball into its own thing. And now I have to do it almost every show.
Right. Now, is that one of the things that you love and loathe about
Like you feel like your bread's buttered a little bit, where it's like, okay, I gotta 10 minutes in, I gotta do the tequila thing now.
Well, I try to throw it at the beginning because it's very tiring to dance. Even though I'm not actually really dancing well, it still makes me very tired, more tired than the wrestling. But yeah, no, it's one of those things where I'm like, I try not to do it every single show because I don't want to wear it out. And if it doesn't fit, I don't try to shoehorn it in. I've had people try to do that where I'm like, we don't have to do it. They're like, no, no, you have to do it. I'm like, I really don't. I was like, I've done it in this town however many times now they've seen it. It doesn't need to just be in for the sake of being in there. So it's like, I know my stuff. I know what works. I know what doesn't work at this point. For the most part, I know the character. So it's one of those things where, yeah, I loathe it sometimes, but also it's great to have in the back pocket.
Now, I swear this is the last question about Tequila.
Oh, that's okay.
Because now you're with Ring of Honor, and Ring
Yeah.
of Honor obviously is they're building themselves back up. They had a particularly, we're not gonna get into the details because it's not our place, but they've had a particularly hard time during the pandemic, and now they're coming back. You're one of the bigger names on the bill now. I've seen you do Tequila for Ring of Honor. I don't think I'm alone in saying it's not the same.
No, it's not.
How have you gotten around that? Is there a plan to, like, I don't think they would ever license the music just for that one bit. But like, how have you gotten around it thus far? Like, do you think that there's a way to do it with a different song that maybe get the license to, or just like, you're better off just not doing that in the future, or
Yeah, I mean,
sparingly
like
for
I
Ring
said,
of Honor?
I'm fine with just not doing it. When I do it, I kind of do it as a callback where I'll just be on the apron and I'll yell da 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 da, and I'll super kick them. If the audience is there, I can get them to sing it with me. My first show there, I sang it myself with the Columbus audience for, like, I was supposed to be on a dark match, but then they put me on a TV championship match with Shane Taylor. And I started singing it and the audience caught on right away, which I was very surprised at, because, like, you can go do it. And I was like, let's see if it works. And then I sang it myself, which was terrifying. That was more horrifying than debuting. And then they bought into it and did it. But yeah, it's one of those things, like, I don't necessarily want them to license it for me to do it, because then I'll feel obligated to do it every match. I'd rather tease it. Like, I think it was a Final Battle. I yelled, "Play my music," full well knowing they cannot play my music, and then I jumped off and I kneed him in the face. So it's like, if I trick people, like, I can trick people to do that, like, where I can tease the spot and then just not do it if I want to. It's also a very audience participation based spot. So right now, I have zero interest doing it in front of no crowd.
Right, but I think that's the beauty of what you do, and I think that's the beauty of that move and that spot and the performance aspect of it, because it's so unique. Yeah, we've had dance breaks in the middle of professional wrestling matches before, but it's so, I'm gonna say it's just a simple word. It's just kooky, and you know what? Kooky's fun, and
Kooky is fun.
everything about what you do is real fun, but it also doesn't seem stale. And I know that, you're now on a bigger platform to show the character and the development and the move set and the work rate, with Ring of Honor, because they're all across the country on television. But it still doesn't feel like, how if you've seen certain characters in professional wrestling, sometimes things are just beat to death constantly. But with this, it doesn't feel like that. Now, I don't know if it's just because you're so self-aware, and like, okay, I don't want to overbeat this, so let me do other things. And then you've incorporated a whole bunch of other stuff. So, like, let's go back for a minute. Let's talk about the genesis of this character, man. Like,
Yeah.
the whole thing. I want to know, how did you get into professional wrestling? And was it always some version of Danhausen? Because I know you wrestled as Donovan Danhausen, but like,
Yeah.
when did you go full blown face paint, covering your ears with face paint? And because that's got to be a to take off when you're washing
Yeah.
your face at the end of the
Well,
night.
yeah, because again, going back to it, the early version of Danhausen, I don't know, maybe these are still up on YouTube, but I remember seeing like some little vignettes where it was like legitimately creepy, like very sort of like
Yeah.
found footage, like going in someone's basement and you're like you have like plastic over your face, like suffocating yourself or something like that.
Yeah, we used to get real weird with it. So I'll get to that point. But starting out, it was just I live not next to, but a few miles away from the House of Truth, Truth Martini's wrestling school, where Jimmy Jacobs is like a co-trainer and everything. So that's where I started. I think I graduated in 2013 and had my first match that year. So something right around there. So what is that, like 8 years ago? Um, so yeah, that's where it started. Obviously, I started out as just a regular guy wrestler. I got very lucky early on though, and I debuted for a place called Dreamwave Wrestling. And there was one show called Anniversary where I was supposed to debut. I don't know if anyone knows this. I was supposed to debut and get, I think, just immediately squashed by Eddie Kingston. But Ali got injured and his spot opened up. He was wrestling Johnny Gargano. So I got put in that spot, and it was kind of like they're like, it's a sink or swim. So go out there and see if you can, hang with them. And I did. So then they had me wrestle him again. And then after that second match, I got an opportunity over in Inspire Pro in Austin, Texas. And they're like, you're debuting, you're in a 4-way with Ricochet. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I mean, that's great because I have to drive 20 something hours and that's my match. So that's wonderful. But again, I did well at that. So then that kind of caught on. I still was very new and not very good, but I was being hidden by very good wrestlers. So that was, great because that's the best thing you could ask for, I think, as a new wrestler, is to be wrestling these guys who are very, very, very good when you're not. And they could just help you and hide your flaws and everything. And then I just kind of, I don't want to say floundered, but it was just kind of like I got a lot of buzz from those matches, and then I didn't really do much with it because I was kind of on and off wrestling, like once a month, twice a month, whatever. Because I was like, oh well, I can't take time off work because that's where I make my money, and I'm not making money wrestling, and that whole thing. Then I want to say it's just very stagnant for like 4 or 5 years or so, and then I moved down to Florida for a little bit. Thought there was going to be a ton of wrestling there. There was not. I think that's just a common misconception because NXT is down there. So I moved back to Michigan, and from there I started doing weekly shows down in Ohio. And I was losing money. I was not necessarily having fun. I was not having very good matches, and that's on me. And I was getting hurt all the time. And it just got to a point where I was like, this sucks. I was like, wrestling can either be the best job you have, or it can be the absolute worst job in the world. It just depends on like the circumstance. And at the time I was like, this is the worst. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I was like, I will give it one last go because I think I owe it to myself. And I'm going to incorporate all the horror stuff that I grew up with because my dad was a big horror fan. He built haunted houses when I was a child and everything. So I've been around that my whole life. He used to like dress me up for Halloween, dress me up as like zombies and whatever else. He made me a Kane costume as a kid, like a full-on custom Kane costume. Uh,
Cool, man.
yeah, so like I was like, I'm gonna incorporate all of that stuff and have fun with it and see if it does anything, if it catches on at all. And if it doesn't, that's great. I gave it a good like one last good shot where I like actually cared and tried and did all that. And if that's on me if it fails. So we got it's my friend Nick and David, who I film with in their basement. That's who film all my stuff still. That's Davis, my assistant now, quote unquote, and then camera boy Nick. I just incorporated them and made them characters rather than just nobody. But we would sit down in the basement and film stuff for like 6 hours and then take time to edit it and try to make it look decent, like bad but decent still, like old VHS style, B movie quality. And yeah, those caught on, but not as much as me just saying stupid things into a camera like I don't care at all. So I did the horror thing for what is it? Probably a full year, where it got me into like AIW and everything with the production. And that was more spots, more opportunity, and more eyes on me, because I know tons of people went through there who are now all over TV. I think like Candice LeRae, Kevin Owens, Johnny Gargano, just Cedric Alexander, just all of those people went through there. Um, so that was a nice thing. I didn't cut promos where I talk because I was terrified of doing it. So we would always have Derek Direction do it. We'd be like, "Hey, you talk. You're better at talking." And I would sit in the back and be like, "I don't want to talk. I'm bad at it." And arguably, I'm still bad at it. I just don't care what I say, so it sounds very natural. Um, but yeah, so we did that for the longest time, for a year. I guess not the longest time. And then, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought now. That started to kind of transpire and evolve into the next thing when they booked me against Effie at Black Label Pro, because he's like, let's get weird with it. Let's do all the stuff you actually want to do. Let's do the teeth thing. Let's do um, anything you want. I'm game. So between that and then this place called Old Wrestling, which I wrestled as a vampire, quote unquote, uh, or a guy who thinks he's a vampire, and I did a full on like Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny type Dracula thing, and then I kind of just meshed the two, and from there it kind of just snowballed more and more and more into this current Danhausen character, which is just silly, and also the horror theme is still there. So it's been a long process. I've only been doing this character for about a year and a half, like fully this character. So I feel like I rambled for a long time there.
No, you
No,
didn't,
no.
and it works perfectly because you talked about a couple of things that I found interesting. One, the connection with your father, right? So
Yeah.
if there was no Dadhausen, there'd be no Danhausen because
Oh, absolutely not.
yeah, because he is into all of this stuff that you're into, and I think that's really cool. Now, when you were doing this and you're still working on the character, does he watch the footage and tell you, "Hey, why don't you add this? This was from this old cool 1960s B film. You know, maybe you can use this." Like, how much influence does your dad still have on the character?
So I would say a lot still. It's definitely a lot more of I'll just do this. It's a lot of improv now, where I'll just take a small idea and then just do whatever based off of that. But yeah, at the beginning, he is definitely just all stuff of movies like Evil Dead, Army of Darkness, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which is actually what I say, like the original version of the character is more Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is just straight up horror. And then this current incarnation is like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, where it's a very dark comedy. That's what I try to relate it to, or like Evil Dead into Army of Darkness. It's just like a straight up horror versus the horror comedy portion. But yeah, he would throw ideas at me and everything. He's actually still to this day will be like, "Hey, why don't you do more evil stuff now that you're on TV?" And I'm like, "That's very nice, very evil. It has to be very nice, very evil. I can't just do the evil stuff."
No,
Like,
but you
Dad, I
even
love
coined
you,
a
but I gotta do what got me to the dance. I gotta.
right,
Yeah,
and
yeah, exactly.
it's so much so that you coined a motto that people love to say now, you know? So, like, that's
Easy,
the
Timmy.
thing. Well, listen, you say that you're not a good talker, but I got to call Pox on that because anything that you say is very entertaining. Now, I always used to think that The Ultimate Warrior was a good promo, even if it made no sense to me. And the man can ramble about the moons of Plundar and Eternia or whatever he spoke about, right? But the fact
Yeah.
is, you're fixated on this guy, muscles raging out of his face, veins coming out of his neck, like the vibrant paint colors. And he's talking about whatever it is. You don't know what it is, but you like, you know what? I like this. This is
Well,
cool. So
well,
to
it's a
see a
spectacle.
guy like, hold on, let me finish. So to see like a guy like, so to see like an individual like yourself, like, all right, let me work on this. And you say, oh, I just ramble and I go on one little thought. Hey man, go on that one little thought because I think that's the power of improv. And one of the questions that I have is, do you or have you ever worked on improv? Did you guys take any improv classes? And if so, like, are you using certain methods to get over this quote unquote fear you have of speaking in public?
No, I have no Not at all. I have no background in comedy. I have no background in like writing or anything performing. Like I said, I was genuinely terrified of um, being in front of a crowd, talking, speaking in front of a crowd, and just the more I did it, the more comfortable I became with it, which I think is just everybody. But I think it was just really the uh, lack of not. I don't want to say lack of care because I care a lot. I care enough to try to put out stuff that I'm proud of, but just the lack of caring, I guess. Um, like I don't care if I say something stupid. I don't care if there's I think what egg on my face is the phrase. It doesn't matter. Like usually it's the heel who has to who can do that. I'm like as a baby face or as a heel, it doesn't matter. I can look like an idiot because I can flip it around and acknowledge it and do something fun with it. But yeah, I have nothing to base that off of. It's just going out there and doing it.
Well, now, even though you don't have, sort of formal comedy training, I even hate using that term. You do have great comedic influences. Like it's very clear that you have like Simpsons, Conan
Oh
O'Brien,
yeah,
like those are very big influences in what you do on the comedic side of things. Like you've
yes,
tipped your hat to those two entities specifically over and over again in your work. Here and there there'll be little hints to that.
yeah. Conan O'Brien is definitely he influenced this character heavily. It's not necessarily actually influenced by any wrestler besides. I will say I got back into wrestling because of CM Punk, so I always make sure I credit him whenever anybody has anything. I'm like, I only started watching wrestling again around when I did because he was on commentary. I think he was injured and he was on commentary, so I would gladly watch Raw because I could hear him doing commentary the whole night. So every single match to me was actually interesting, even if I wasn't interested in the wrestlers. And then he, I think, came back right after that and fought John Cena pretty quickly, and then kind of propelled into the main event scene. But yeah, he brought me back into wrestling, so I'm heavily influenced by him and just how he talks, and it just kind of seems like he says what he wants, and then just the Conan O'Brien aspect of it. And I was used to watch The Simpsons nonstop as a kid. I still do, and then Seinfeld. So like those three things, like Larry David heavily influences this character as well.
What
Oh,
do you
you
think
could
of
tell.
current Simpsons? Because I have a theory that I've been testing out with people about The Simpsons for a while now, which is a lot of people say, oh, well, it fell off a cliff after a certain point. And look, there's no denying that seasons like 3 through 8 are probably the golden era of The Simpsons. I don't think anyone would deny that. But
Yeah,
I think there was a dark period, maybe not long after that, like seasons like 13 through 17, whatever. But I think
yeah,
that in the past couple of years, even I would say going back 10 years now, given the longevity of the show, that the people writing the show now were the same people watching the show in the 90s. So therefore, they have this idea of what they want the show to be that is more in line with the golden era of The Simpsons than maybe that period, between like seasons like 10 and 15. And that, every once in it's not as consistent now, but every time I tune in, like every couple episodes, I'm like, yeah, that was actually really good.
so I don't watch too often anymore because it's kind of the opposite of what you have. Every single time I've tuned in randomly, it is some obnoxious, insane episode where I'm like, I don't understand what this is. Who is this for? Like, I forget. It was probably a few years ago. I just drove to New York City with my friend just on a whim, and we were sitting in one of the New York bars, and a new episode of The Simpsons was on. It was not Treehouse of Horror, and they flew to space, and I was like, what? I was like, it's not Deep Space Homer, like that. That there was a full on like episode to build that.
Right.
This was just straight up, they just flew to space for some reason at the beginning of the episode, and I was like, I don't think this show is for me anymore. Um, I can't remember. I watched one. We were in the hotel for Ring of Honor the last month, and one was on, and I don't know. I want to say J.J. Abrams was in it, but it was like Homer was writing raps for a Chuck E. Cheese like character, and I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Well, that's like I
So
heard recently there was an episode where they went, because they did this a while back, but now they did another one where Homer's a teenager in the 90s. It's like that just rubs me the wrong
yeah,
way.
that's not. I don't care about that.
Well, because
It's
there's
funny.
something to like the internal logic of a show. Like, okay, we could accept that the kids will never age and things like that because that's part
Yeah.
of the inherent logic that's
You've already
presented.
wrote a history, and now you're changing it, so it's weird.
Right, exactly. Like 30 years on now, it's like, well, we know Homer was a teenager in the 70s, but now it's the 90s. No one cares. It's like, well, I kind of care. I mean,
Right, because I just started watching it again, because I stay up late and I'm editing, for other clients and things like that. So I have the TV on in the background, and I
Yeah.
just started watching them again on like FX, and it's on all the time now. It's on every other channel. The syndication's through the roof. But I'm sitting there and I'm watching the old episodes. I'm like, wow, these are really good. So then I hopped on to Disney Plus just to see what it was like now, and I'm like, is this the same show?
that's the thing. It's way too hit or miss. Like they're like, I
Yeah.
could give you like a playlist of like 10 episodes in the past couple years that will probably be really good. But then I could also give you a playlist that's like the worst Simpsons episodes you've ever seen in your entire life.
But isn't that like cartoons across the board now? Like there are some really well written cartoons, right? But I think the narrative, like Dan was saying, Homer's in space. Well, isn't it that
Well,
how it is
there's
now
no
with this?
heart to it.
Well, right. There's no real plot lines for these cartoons anymore. It's like, okay, here's a loose base idea. Let's animate it. Let's see where it goes. Like Family Guy is there's a structure.
Joke.
Right. Let's just hit
Right.
the beat, hit the beat, hit the beat, hit the beat, and keep it moving. Like there's no real like fluidity.
There's no timelessness
No,
to it. I could
no.
show someone old Simpsons episodes today, and even though there's always going to be a couple jokes here and there that are of their time, but by and large, you can watch a whole episode and be like, wow, that holds up today. That's going to hold up 10 years from now. I could
Yeah.
show someone any episode of Family Guy though, and it's like, what am I watching? It's aged like milk. Like it's even
It's
like a
almost
day
like an
later.
America's Funniest Home videos, but just as a cartoon, where it's just like random joke, random joke, random joke, random joke.
Right. And I think there is a place for that. I think you can make an argument that it has its audience, but I think at the end of the day, when you talk about again that timelessness, that ability to be more than what something says you are on the tin, like those old episodes, like they were a family sitcom, and there's no familyness about the Simpsons now. There's no sort of heart to balance out the humor and what they're doing.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. There's no heart to it anymore. It doesn't seem, maybe there is, because to be fair, again, I don't really watch it enough to give it, I think, a fair opinion, to where like someone should be like, oh, Danhausen said it's bad, so you shouldn't watch it now. Like, absolutely not. Watch it and figure it out for yourself, because I don't watch it, so I don't actually know. I just know that the last like 5 episodes or so that I've watched, which were all random throughout the past like 5 years, I did not enjoy.
Right. But a lot can be said too for South Park and other cartoons like that as well.
Yeah,
I think Bob's Burgers is well done. I think that flows very well.
I
I
agree.
think anything on Adult Swim fits into that weird construct. Like
Yeah,
we're gonna make it work, but then just use your imagination with it. But those are like in 15-minute spurts or like maybe 22-minute. You're
yeah,
not really you won't sit and like The Simpsons has almost like 35 years of just continuity. These new cartoons, they're so short that they don't. Rick and Morty's very well written and joke,
yeah.
but there's a real like cohesiveness to everything that they do with Rick and Morty. I think
Yes,
that Animaniacs does the new reboot on Hulu. I thought it was brilliant. Did you watch the rebooted
I did.
version?
I did not get to watch that. I
Smart.
actually forgot it came out, so now I know.
It's
Now I can
smart,
watch
man.
it. Yeah,
Let me
but
tell you
I
something.
love
Smart.
Animaniacs.
Oh my god, it's so good. Like that stuff is timeless. Like I could sit back and I can watch old Animaniacs and it still hits. And then the stuff that they've done now, it flows so well. Like it's a very well written show. So besides, like we know in the back you have a whole bunch of Marvel toys, and I'm gonna ask about that because I'm fiending because I'm a big toy collector myself. Um, but what other like influences has the Danhausen pulled from? Like you watch cartoons, so what other cartoons have you pulled from?
Definitely. So, oh, there's probably a list. There's got to be some sort of Futurama in there. This old Simpsons, obviously. Venture Brothers, the Monarchs,
Mm,
a huge influence on the character because he's a super evil dork. Like he tries so hard to be evil, and he is, but he's not. Like, um, but yeah, that's definitely a huge influence on the character. Mark Hamill's Joker, specifically, that from Batman the animated series. I would say those are the main ones. I'm sure I'm missing something, but definitely Venture Brothers, Joker from the Batman cartoon, Simpsons, and so I don't know necessarily what from Futurama, probably just the humor,
right.
but
So is
yeah,
that where the voice?
those for sure.
So is that where the voice comes from? It's part Monarch and like part Danhausen. Like, is that where we're getting like that interesting voice? Because the voice
Uh,
is very distinct
that
with the character. Like I've caught myself walking around trying to do like the Danhausen thing, like,
yeah.
Sparkshausen's not pleased right now that he's eating peas, like like weird shit like that. Like what I mean?
So that more so probably, I mean, it comes from definitely like kind of the Monarch, but also just Conan,
Right.
because he'll just go off on a tangent in some weird voice, just yelling at his assistant or whatever on the skit that they're doing. And that's kind of just me just playing around with my voices as just figuring out what worked, because I think when I first started doing the character I had some trying to be scary voice or something, I don't know what it was. And I was like, this sucks to do, like, so that's why when I'm talking I just have my normal whatever Danhausen voice, and then I'll kind of creep in the evil voice here and there just when I say something that's supposed to be horrifying or whatever it might be, and then I instantly go back to it because it's so much easier on my voice.
How was the first horror voice? Can you do a little bit for us? Was it like Christian Bale's Batman?
So no, it was more easier to understand than that. I'm trying to think. I can't even remember. Like, I'll go back and watch old videos, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to post that. Because I'll try to post some old stuff sometimes, and I'm like, this doesn't even sound like me. It's just kind of like a deeper version of my voice.
Okay.
But then you get the Danhausen voice now, and you're just like, hello, yes, this is Danhausen, blah 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 blah, and I'll just go very evil, and that's whatever I'm saying, and I'll just try to go back and forth with both of them, just to get both character points across. But yeah, that old one, I have no idea what I was doing. I think it was just something like more gravelly, kind of like you were saying, like Christian Bale-ish, but not really.
So now let's get into because before the show started, we were talking about toys, and you have this huge
Yes.
Marvel collection. I actually seen the thing that you did with Ethan Page, so I was like, oh man, okay, because I know Ethan's a huge action figure collector, and he has them spread out all over his room, and I know you do now
Yeah.
too. So how far does that extend? Because it looks so gnarly. And is that like, and that's the is that recarded stuff that they did to relaunch a retro line, or are you like toy hunting for original mint on card from the 90s?
No, these are redos that they've put out. They're Marvel Legends that they've put out on retro cards. So these are newer, within the past couple years. But yeah, this is an entire wall, and then there definitely was enough to fill probably all four walls in this room. But I've been unboxing them for YouTube and stuff just to throw stuff up there, and also it's easier for me to store if they're not boxed, because they just take up so much space. I don't have enough room for everything because I also have Batman the Animated Series collection. So though they put out a line within the past 6 years, I think that's now gone because the company went under, and I just completed that because of thanks to Toy Vomit, I was able to complete the set.
I love Toy Vomit. They're so good, man.
Uh,
They're so good.
they're great.
So now, are you a completist like me? Because the one thing, right, that I've got into during pandemic, I got a pandemic hobby. Instead of just angrily stewing in my house, I decided to collect something. And I was talking to Vinny, and I'm like, Vin, I think I'm gonna do this. And Vin, you know, like the good friend that he is, goes, hey, go slow when you're collecting because it's overwhelming. And I started collecting Masters of the Universe. Now, Vin and I have a mutual friend he's just a embrace the dark side and just start spending, you know, hundreds of dollars on the plastic.
Well, that's the thing. You told me you wanted to do this at first. And I'm like, well, buy things that you really want. Don't just look at, like I told him what I do is I'll look on eBay at stuff and I'll give it, you know, a couple days and be like, you know, in 5 days, do I still want this as much as I want it right now? And I'm telling him all these like little tips, like, yeah, you gotta wait, you gotta, you know, make sure it's something that you're gonna really love when you get it. And then smash cut to,
I didn't
yeah,
listen.
I just spent $200 on this Masters of the Universe set. I had to get it in box. I'm like,
that's what I'm doing.
I fully understand that.
So I'm going through the origin stuff, right? Because my logic is this, right? And I love the vintage line, but my thing is this: some of these figures are almost 45 years old, right?
Yeah.
And you know, they're because of the rubber, they're looking like this lately, you know? Like,
Yeah.
so I thought to myself, now that Mattel is releasing this entire line over again, and you're getting better points of articulation where you can actually like do like kung fu moves with the toys and all of this
Yeah, they're
stuff,
all updated.
all updated. And then you can switch and mix match now, and there's no uncomfortable like, you know, He-Man bands in the legs anymore. Like,
Yep.
I decided to do everything mint on card because when I was a kid, I played with them, I destroyed them. Now that I'm a grown man, I'm almost 40 years old, I want them prominently displayed in acrylic cases, mounted on a nice display case. And that's what I'm doing. So when I first started, I text Vin, look at the haul that I got. See, and it was waves 1, 2, 3, and 4, all carded from Big Bad Toy Store. I was like, you know what?
Yep.
If I'm going, I'm diving all in and I'm doing it. So it's like, are
Well,
you
that's the way to do it.
right? And I'm completing the whole thing. And I said to myself that I'm going to do this. Did I want to do the Super 7 Thundercats line? Yeah, but this is where the logic comes in. Do I want to spend the 500 on the Thunder tank, not open it because I don't know, and just leave it in the box? So am I paying $500 for the box art?
but that's the thing. You're paying for the box at that point. If you're resigning something,
Yeah.
not opening it, like you don't have to play with it. But if you want it, you know, if you want it because you're like, wow, it's a really cool figure, and now you just have a box. It's like I could mock up a box for you and give you a box.
No, I don't think you could do the same artwork.
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
No, well, no, I can't. No.
So Don, when did you first start like to scratch that figure itch? Like when was the first time?
So I've gone back and forth. I collected the DC collectibles, kind of. They're like Marvel Legends. I had those. I sold them off. I had the original Toy Biz line of Marvel Legends. I had a bunch of them. I sold those off. I do this a lot. Now I'm just keeping everything. But Ethan Page is actually to blame for all of this.
Of course he is. Look at that.
I remember he had something because I sold some of my original DC toys to him because I was like, I'm out again. And I sold him a Clayface, which we talked about this on my Patreon. I was like, hey, remember when I sold you this Clayface for $20 and I like had it again? And he goes, yeah. I was like, this thing's worth like $300 now. I was like, it's ridiculous. But yeah, I was collecting. I was like, I'll only get the Spider-Man villains. I'll get Spider-Man, I'll get his villains. And then they started releasing really cool one-off figures, and I was like, I'll get the one-off figures like Moon Knight and Death's Head too, and stuff like that, because I grew
pretty
up
much
loving
it's
those.
like, okay, I'll get everything.
And then I was like, oh, but they're making really cool X-Men characters. I can't just have Archangel. I was like, I gotta have Wolverine and Cyclops and like Psylocke and and then I was like, I'm just getting all of them.
I mean, look, you got to get Morph. You can't have your collection without a Morph.
But yeah, like, so I was texting him every time. I was like, got these for today. I was like, this is your fault. I was like, I'm gonna get fully back in. It's your fault. He's like, no, you're just fine. He's like, just end it there. And I was like, you can't. I was like, they're gonna make more characters. And then they do the Build-A-Figures. And I'm like, well, I have to buy this character that I actually don't want to get the Build-A-Figure that I do want. And then I'm just like, whatever. I'll go to Big Bad Toy Store. I'll buy the whole line now because it's just cheaper that way. Because I know I'm gonna have to get it anyway.
Now, do you
That's
open
how
some
they
of these?
that's how they really get you now, where you get to build the figures, because that's something that has only really come about in the past like 15 or so years. I mean, I'm sure they've done it before,
Yeah.
but now they've sort of got you by the balls now, where it's like, oh,
Yep.
you want this? Like, we know we've got a really cool figure, but we're only going to make you piece together piece by piece that really cool figure.
Yeah. So like, were you gonna ask me if I keep them in the box?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was at first, but then I like some of the Spider-Man figures are really expensive, and I found them loose for decent prices. So I was like, I guess I'm just opening everything, because like Hobgoblin, I was like, I'm not paying $200 for him or whatever in package. I think I got him for 60 opened, and I was like, that's still too much, but whatever. Also, it just falls under a weird category of where I have to open them to build the figures, So I'm like, I'll just open them. Like, I can't have Apocalypse just sitting in pieces.
No,
Like,
no.
so, but like Apocalypse, you can't have unless you open them up. So I'm like, I guess I'm opening these.
So the ones you keep in the back over there, those are gonna remain unopened.
We'll see. Those are slowly getting taken off the wall. Like that Wolverine up in the corner is open because it's from the Apocalypse series. So you can open these and kind of display them still, because they close back up nicely.
Right.
So Marvel Legends are fine with that, but I think I'm just at a point where I'm like, I'm just gonna open them and display them nicely.
I'm also talking about like the Spider-Man cards and the
Oh, these
X-Men
ones
card backs.
I'm a little bit more weary on opening these ones just because they're so cool looking.
Don't do it.
Uh,
Don't do it. Don't do it. I'll be
Do
so
it.
mad at
Open
you.
'em.
We'll
Play
see.
with 'em.
No, don't listen to him. Listen, no, you listen to me.
Do
I'm the
it.
voice of reason here because, bro, look, do you know how aesthetically appealing that is on your wall right now? Like I'm fixated on it, and I'm real. It's like looking at a fish tank for me. It's like you know how some people watch fish
Yeah.
swim or a fireplace. To me, looking at these cards right now, I am just so relaxed looking at this. I'm like, damn, I kind of want to start collecting this just so I can have X-Men figures because it
So
takes me back to my childhood.
yeah, exactly. I with some of them I might buy a second because I do kind of want to keep these ones in. The ones up above, I don't care. I'll take those out. But these like old retro cards, like I want to get another Electro because I want to open it. Like I don't really necessarily need another Green Goblin because I have a current Green Goblin. Whatever, all this nerd stuff. But like,
Right.
I'm just like, yeah, there's some of these where I do like that Spider-Man on the wall is hard to find, so I don't want to pay like a premium price for him because I paid retail for that one. But I do want to open it because it's a good Spider-Man.
Well, speaking of the premium pricing, I was going to ask, do you ever go to, I know around here in the sort of New York, New Jersey area, there's a lot of like toy fairs, like sort of roadside, like bingo hall,
Yeah.
Knights of Columbus, like they just have a toy fair on the weekends. Do you ever hit like those kinds of old fashioned?
I used to. I haven't in a really long time, but like if any like there's Motor City Comic Con here, and I'll try to go to that. When it was open, I don't think it's happening this year again either. But I would always try to hit those because you can usually get a good price on stuff on the last day. If you show up on a Sunday and they just want to get rid of stuff, you can.
You got to go on the last day when people are like, okay, fine, I'll haggle. But like,
Yeah, they're like, I don't want to pack this up.
Yeah, exactly. Like like I remember going to these toy fairs and you get some deals, but then my favorite is always like the old men who've been hoarding this stuff since the 60s. And they're just like $200, take it or leave it. It's like, well, I don't have that money. And they're like, well, get out of here. It's like, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's gonna be.
Yeah, no,
me.
I don't have to deal.
That's gonna be
with
me.
the Masters of the Universe.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna be like, hey, listen, $375 for this in package Triclops. What do you want to do? You know, so that's that. Do you collect that as well?
I do. I started collecting the villains. I only grabbed the villains though.
Of course.
I was like, I don't want to get in the whole line. This one, I think I have more self control over, where I'm like, I'll just get Skeletor. I'll get all of the villains that they make. I'm still missing. What is it? Trapjaw. I missed Trapjaw when he came out, but aside from that, I think I have and Evil Lyn. I missed Trapjaw and Evil Lyn, and I need to find them. But aside from that, I've got everyone, I think.
Oh, I'm not into the thrill of the hunt. Like you two brothers seem like you're into the thrill of the hunt and going out into the wild.
Okay, it's a whole experience. Like, you don't just,
Yeah.
you see it online on eBay and it's like, click,
good.
I got it. Ooh,
Yep.
what excitement.
No, that there is a
I
ton
like-
of excitement to do that. I'm like,
There's excitement from that if I get a good price.
Right. If you get a good price, there's excitement. But like, I think there's got to be a good mix. You can't be the person that's all the time just like, well, I've got the money for it. Let me just buy it online every single time. Like, you want
But
the party.
sometimes
You want to go
it's very
somewhere.
nice.
Sometimes it is very nice. But like, you want those. You want the like. How thrilling is it when you go to a toy fair and you see something that you never even thought existed? And
Okay,
you're
well
like,
that's
wow.
a whole different story though. But if it's like a new set of Marvel Legends, I'll straight up just go on to Big Bad Toy Store and I'll pre-order the whole thing. And then if I happen to find them at a comic shop or something, I'll cancel those and then I'll buy it from the local comic shop. But
listen, that's an amazing logic to have, but for me, I'm not going out of my way to go to, I don't know, let's say Manville, New Jersey's toy
yeah,
bingo bonanza on a weekend. Like, I'm not doing that. But what I am
Yeah.
gonna do is I'm gonna go to Big Bad Toy Store. I'm gonna hit collector's grade, pay the extra shipping fee, and know that my toys are coming pre-packed, individually wrapped, and
Look at
shipped
you,
here.
extra shipping fee.
Oh, Daddy, let me tell you something.
I
I
know.
want these things coming home like if I was having a kid taking it home from the hospital the first night. I ain't messing around. Like, now they're sitting, I have two 70-gallon containers in my garage that I'm just putting all this stuff in, and I'm not even opening it, Don.
I was gonna
Like,
say, so not only are they not coming out of the box, they're not coming out of big plastic tins
no.
that you've got in a garage. So
Yeah.
essentially, you've got them in a box,
Yes.
in another box,
Absolutely.
and you can count the garage as the third box.
Yes.
You've got this weird Russian nesting doll of
Yes.
Marvel figurines and He-Man that you're
And I
just
sleep
sitting
well
on.
at night. And I sleep well at night knowing that they're protected until I get enough acrylic cases to
I was gonna say,
open them up.
until what? Until the sun burns out? What?
Oh, I'm just saying, I got to get the acrylic cases to put the carded.
Okay, so
Open
now they're
the-
gonna go in acrylic cases in the
Oh, you know it.
plastic bins
Yep.
in the garage.
Oh, there's a whole master plan to this. Like, it's slowly coming together. So you guys give me some time, and then what I'll do is I'll start taking photos of this, and then Donovan, what I'll do is I'll take photos of like the container, and I'll DM you my weird, like, hey, here's
Yes.
a cardboard
Look at
box.
this.
Here's what it looks like.
Yeah, 3 a.m. You're gonna.
Oh, he will. He's gonna get like, here's Land Shark, and it's just the box without even seeing the Land Shark.
Just be like, who the
So,
fuck is this? What is it?
I just started getting regrettably into the NECA Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cartoon figures.
Thinking
Oh,
about
those
that as
NECA
well.
figures are oof.
Thinking
They're
about it as
very
well.
good.
Very good.
They're
Yes.
I found them in Canada for retail for most of them, which was surprising because there was just a random toy shop that had them for like, I think they were like $10 more than retail, but I was like, that's fine because these are like double usually. So those I kind of regret opening, but I don't, because the only reason I regret opening them is because they're NECA toys, and when you open them, they're broken or they're stiff, and you have to do something with them to make them not. And I'm just like,
Yeah. NECA's like the example of, or the exception to the rule of mine. Like, you want them in the box. Like, with NECA, it's a
it
whole
was just
production.
so I don't have the original turtles. I have almost everything else, and they're coming out with a turtle set where they're in disguises, which will be easier to get, kind of, probably not. But I was like, I don't want them displayed in the box with their disguises on. I'm going to want to open them and have them displayed as turtles. So I was like, I'm opening these.
Okay.
Well, I remember the big NECA line for me, and maybe you got these or remember these as well. Like about 4 or 5 years ago, they started doing Freddy and Jason figures, but based on based on how they looked in the NES games.
Yes, I actually don't have either of those ones. I think I have only the Alien one from the Alien 3 game, but that's it. But those are very cool.
So now, if people want to see your unboxing videos and your toy collecting stuff, is it purely based on your Patreon subscription, or is there a YouTube?
No, I do this for free on YouTube. Like any of the unboxing and like toy stuff, I throw for free up on YouTube. So all of that is on there, and like I said, I'm slowly trying to basically unbox everything, just because it'll be easier to store, it'll be easier to display. I want to get some nice shelves and like put up some fun displays with like the X-Men and the Spider-Man figures and all that.
Right. Has your wife said enough is enough? Like no more.
No, she doesn't care because right now she doesn't care. I'm sure it'll get to a point where she does, but she's like she's like, if it makes you happy, it's also something for me to do during the pandemic, so I don't just sit there like you were saying. Like this has become a hobby, and it's like this is, aside from like wrestling, I just do this. Like I buy toys and I collect toys. I don't really play video games or anything, so like I have, wrestling is my job, and then my hobby is collecting these toys now.
Same. I haven't
Yeah,
played video games since the early '90s, so I'm lost within that
I'm
world.
terrible.
But let me tell you something. You get me to talk about a He-Man figure and the points of articulation, or even these new, and I just bought 3 of them. Those new Marvel 3.75 retro Kenner.
Oh yeah, those are cool.
So good. Like, do you have any of those?
I have not been able to find any of them, but they all look very cool.
Hasbro Pulse Wave 1, $79. And it also comes with an exclusive variant paint color of Black Panther and Iron Man.
Are they still up?
Yes, they are.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't know this. I was like, Target
you.
only ever has one.
I don't do Target. I don't do Walmart because they're coming destroyed. Like I've never
Yeah.
understood that.
Well, not only are they coming destroyed, but you've got the people who show up at like 7 a.m. because they know when the shipments are coming in. Long ago, about like 13 years ago, I worked at a Target, and it was like every Tuesday. It was like every Tuesday and Thursday we would get shipments in, and first thing first, at like 6:45 in the morning, there'd be the same people every week out front. 15 minutes later, they'd come online to make their purchase, and they'd
Buying a case.
Yeah, they buy up the case of everything, make all the little kids cry. They took all the toys before anyone could get at them.
I have an idea. I have a business proposal for you. And I think we can do this. Ready?
It's all been leading to this.
This is why I was literally doing this. This is the reason why. I want him to get in on the ground floor. Toyhausen. We start our own toy company where it's just you can buy the toys online, or we have a brick and mortar store, and there will never be a peg empty. Everything will just be clean and beautiful and packaged and shipped right to you, and we'll charge an exorbitant amount because there are people out there like us who will pay them. We'll have Ethan Page as an exclusive customer because he has no ends to a means, because he'll continue to buy.
Yes. It'll be of him, and then Matt Cardona will buy nonstop.
I think if we just have him and Matt Cardona, I think right then and there, our yearly profits go through the roof. But to tie this all back in, real quick, I know you mentioned Effie and the teeth thing, and this is like the last thing I want to talk about is the performance art of the Danhausen character, where people now that you get to work with are so excited to work with you and do the kooky fun outside of the box stuff in professional wrestling. And in terms of performance art, I think it's you really stand out. Effie is just fantastic. Even a guy like Nick Gage, it's real, like he's based in violence, but there's a performance value to what Nick Cage does as well. So to see that, like, it has to be real validating that you have, and even like somebody like you interviewed Renee for your Patreon. There's an excitement when people want to talk to essentially you, but it's you playing the guy that you created. So like, how does that feel for you? Like, is it like, oh wow, like, whew, I did it, okay, it paid off?
So I'm very grateful that people want to participate in the character. Like, I always just ask. I don't think like it's really come down to like most things I've gotten are because I've asked. Like if I didn't just ask Renee to do the interview, like it wouldn't have happened, or maybe it would have eventually. I don't know, but it's because I asked. Like I had Austin Creed on Xavier Woods, and it's because I messed. He had followed me, had liked a few of my things, and I was like, maybe this guy likes my character, maybe he'll want to do this. And he was very nice, and he was like, yes, absolutely. And I'm always those ones I'm more nervous for because I don't personally know them. I've never like met them. Like if it's like Ethan Page I'm friends with, so like that's just like having a conversation with a friend. Like I'm not like, oh no, I hope he likes my character work, I hope he likes, I hope he's having a good time. It's like it's Ethan Page, like we're friends, like we'll be fine. But yeah, the fact that people want to engage with this character and do do skits with the character, or whatever may have you, like I'm always so thankful for that. And I'm always, yes, I'm nervous with it. Those ones, I don't want to say they seem like work because they don't, because they're fun. But those ones I'm like, I have to do this and I have to nail it. Like, so there is a little bit more pressure on the ones with people that I don't necessarily know that lots of people know, because also it's probably going to expose me to their audience who see me for the first time. So I really want to nail it and get across what I want to get across to that new audience.
No, and it's fun because you could see it, like, Austin is calling himself Creedhausen. Renee's calling herself Reneehausen. Effie says Effiehausen. Like everybody likes to, like,
Yeah.
you created like your own like adjective. Like, you put like your, like,
Yes.
today Vin's known as Vinhausen. I'm Sparkshausen today. Like
Yeah.
it's fun to like, so you created a reality that I think people gravitate towards because, like, at the end of the day, you just make people feel good and it's fun to do. And so, my man, plug everything, your Twitter, your Instagram, your Patreon, your YouTube. How can people really see and support what Danhausen does?
So I do a lot of my exclusive stuff, which I do like a cooking show as Danhausen, a review show, a movie review show, the interview show as Danhausen. That's patreon.com/love that Danhausen. I have youtube.com/love that Danhausen, which has like previews of that stuff or just full on older episodes of it so people can see what it is before they decide to join or not. Twitter.com and Instagram is Danhausen AD. And then I've got the Cameo, which has been doing well, which is just /Danhausen, where you can get some message where I curse you or do whatever I do. And then ProWrestlingTees.com/Danhausen, which I'm trying to hopefully move up in the list this year. Last year I was 24, which I was very excited and thankful for. So I'm like, let's bump it up. Let's see how high we can get on that list, as because I think I was the only non-AEW, maybe non-New Japan guy on there who wasn't like a legend. Like I think Austin
they've
was on
got
there.
they've got a pretty strong chokehold on Pro Wrestling Tees.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, AEW tops that list, no doubt about it. And then like Punk is on there, and I think the Major Brothers are on there. But yeah, no, that's where you can find me. That's the sharing things is the best way to support stuff. So
That's very cool, man, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this out of character because, like we said, we wanted to know about the man, because the character can really go anywhere, and there's such an ethos that you can make up on the spot with the character, and it probably would have been fun. And maybe sometime soon we'll have you back on and we'll do like a character-based one. But to have you on just to pick your brain just a little bit, to get to know you, to talk about like your toys and whatever, like I think that was just super cool, man. So like we appreciate it, and hopefully I think maybe when the pandemic and everything starts to loosen up, I got a cool idea that I want to do with you. Maybe we'll do yoga and we'll call it Yoga Housing, and like we'll go to like a yoga studio and we'll do some yoga together, because
that's what
I want to start doing yoga with my wrestling friends, because I'm trying to get them
yeah,
all on the wave just to stay like mobile and fluid and keep them
I
moving. But
need badly to do that.
so
So
let's do
I'm
yoga
down.
housing together then. We'll definitely do that.
So that's what I want to, anything that I can integrate Danhausen into the mainstream, I want to do.
Well,
So
you're doing it, man. You're doing it. Just keep on doing what you're doing. Stay fresh and exciting. You have your finger on the pulse. You understand pop culture to a T. You know how to work social media very well. Cooking with Danhausen, movie reviews with Danhausen. Like, you're doing it in a way where you're not overexposing the character and people get tired of it. So
Well,
Yeah,
you're always doing
thank you
something
so much.
different
I
too.
really
Like,
appreciate that.
yeah, like you're always doing something different too. Like you've got the things that people know, like again, the tequila, you know, the kicking the teeth in people's mouths and things like that. But at the same time, like no two Danhausen clips are actually the same. Like
No,
you really
everything is
know how
always
to,
unique.
yeah, you know how to, like, whatever the moment calls for, like you're right there with it. Like you're not
Yeah,
resting on
that's
you're not
I have to.
resting on your laurels.
No, I have to always switch it up if I need to.
Well, listen, we appreciate you taking the time to tap in with us,
Yeah.
and we'll see you around the road, my man.
Yes, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.